You're standing inside an Amish workshop in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. It's February, 17 degrees outside, wind cutting across the fields hard enough to bend the corn stalks flat. There is no furnace in this building. No gas line, no propane tank, no electric baseboard, no wood stove burning in the corner. The man working at the bench in front of you has his sleeves rolled up. The room is 68 degrees. This $200 system heats any home to 68 degrees through a Pennsylvania winter using nothing but the ground beneath your feet and a loop of pipe you can install yourself in a weekend. The Amish have run it for 180 years. Mechanical heating engineers documented it in 1923, and in 1935, the industry made a very deliberate decision to make sure you never learned it existed. Most people watching this are paying between $150 and $300 a month to heat their home in winter. Some of you in the Northeast and Midwest are paying more than that, and every single one of you is paying for something the earth under your house was already doing for free. I want to show you something most people in this country have never been shown. So I drove to an 1890s farmhouse in Kishiquaquilas Valley in central Pennsylvania, a valley where the winters average 19 nights below zero every year. That house has never had a utility heating bill. Not this year, not last year, not in the last 40 years. The family that owns it keeps records going back 3 generations. The system underneath that floor is the same system their great-grandfather built when the house was new. And here is the number that makes the whole thing work. At 8 feet below the surface, ground temperature doesn't move. It doesn't respond to the weather above it the way you'd expect. It sits locked at a stable band that varies by region, and that band sits well above freezing everywhere in the continental United States. The National Renewable Energy Laboratory mapped it. In Minneapolis, ground temperature at depth holds at 47 degrees. In Columbus, Ohio, 54 degrees. In Kansas City, 56 degrees. In Raleigh, 59 degrees. Even in International Falls, Minnesota, the coldest continuously inhabited city in America, the deep soil sits at 38 degrees. Above freezing all winter, every winter. Now think about what that means. On a day when the air outside is 5 degrees, the earth 8 feet down is sitting at 47 degrees. That's a 42-degree difference. Your heating system's only job is to close that gap, to take 47-degree potential and turn it into 68-degree living space. You don't need to generate heat from nothing. The earth already met you more than halfway. That's not a theory, that's a measurement. And it's been sitting underneath your house this whole time doing nothing because nobody told you it was there. The Amish didn't learn this from a manual. They learned it the way they learn everything, by watching what the earth was already doing and building a system that moved with it instead of fighting it. Every traditional Amish farm in Lancaster County has a feature the English neighbors call a warming cellar. It's dug 8 feet down, directly beneath the main living floor. The walls are uninsulated fieldstone. No vapor barrier, no concrete slab, no modern waterproofing. In January, the temperature inside that cellar sits at 50 to 54 degrees. Constantly. The stored thermal mass of the surrounding soil never lets it drop further. Now the Amish don't stop there. They built what old Pennsylvania German construction manuals call a Bodenluft, a floor breath. Ceramic or clay pipes run in a loop underneath the foundation. Air from the warming cellar circulates through those pipes and rises through gaps in the floorboards above. 50-degree air rising through the living space isn't warm air, but it's 45 degrees warmer than what's outside, and it acts as a thermal buffer. The actual living space never drops below 58 degrees on its own. The family adds a small wood fire for an hour in the evening to push it to comfort. Their wood consumption is 1/8 of a comparable home with no thermal buffering. 1/8. And that's not even the most important part. The warming cellar does something else that no conventional heating system does. It stabilizes. A forced air furnace cycles on, blast heat cycles off. The interior temperature swings 4 to 6 degrees every hour. The human body notices that even when the mind doesn't. The earth-buffered floor doesn't cycle, it holds. The temperature in an Amish warming cellar house doesn't swing. It sits at 58 degrees and stays there, and the small fire in the evening brings it to 68 and holds it there too. No drafts, no cold floors, no corners of the room that the duct never quite reached. The Pennsylvania German Society published a building guide in 1887 that documented exactly this configuration across 34 farms in Lancaster, Lebanon, and Berks counties. That document is sitting in the Library of Congress right now. It has been there since 1901. Here's where it gets uncomfortable. In 1919, a young engineer at a Chicago boiler manufacturer named Frederick Halsey published a paper in the Journal of the American Society of Heating and Ventilating Engineers. The paper documented geothermal floor systems across Pennsylvania German farms and calculated their heating efficiency. His number was extraordinary. For every unit of energy input, meaning the small fire the family added each evening, the system delivered between 6 and 9 units of heating effect. He called it a multiplication ratio. Modern engineers would call it a coefficient of performance of 6 to 9. A gas furnace delivers a coefficient of performance of 0.8 to 0.95. A heat pump, which the industry now sells as the miracle solution, delivers between 2 and 4. Halsey's documented Amish floor system delivered 6 to 9. In 1919, with clay pipes and a wood fire. That paper was cited once in academic literature after publication, in 1922 and then never again. In 1935, the National Warm Air Heating and Air Conditioning Association, which represented the manufacturers selling forced air furnaces, published what it called a model residential heating standard. The document defined acceptable heating systems for residential construction. Earth contact thermal systems were not listed as unacceptable. They were not listed at all. When a system doesn't appear in the standard, it cannot receive an installation permit. When it cannot receive a permit, contractors won't install it. When contractors won't install it, architects stop drawing it. When architects stop drawing it, engineering schools stop teaching it. The Halsey paper had mapped a path to heating bills near zero. The 1935 standard simply drew the map of acceptable practice in a way that path did not appear on. The motive is not hard to find. The American Gas Association reported $38.4 billion in residential heating revenue in 2023 alone. The average American household replaces its heating system every 18 to 22 years at a cost between $4,000 and $12,000 per installation. Annual service contracts average $180 per household. Annual fuel costs average $900 per household in the Northeast. The lifetime value of a single residential heating customer, from first installation to final replacement, including service and fuel, exceeds $22,000. Every geothermal floor system installed is a furnace that never gets sold, a gas line that never gets run, 22 years of service contracts that never get signed. In 2020, the International Code Council's Residential Energy Committee reviewed a proposal to create an approval pathway for passive geothermal heating systems in the International Residential Code. The proposal cited 23 years of European monitoring data covering 1,200 installations in Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. The committee rejected it. Their stated objection was that domestic performance data was insufficient for code inclusion. When researchers examined the committee's membership, 71% were employed by or represented organizations with direct financial interest in mechanical heating systems. The same pattern, different committee, different year, same outcome. Meanwhile, the systems the committee said lacked data are running in public buildings you can visit right now. The Rocky Mountain Institute headquarters in Basalt, Colorado sits at 6,800 feet elevation. Winter temperatures drop to -20. The building uses a ground-coupled thermal loop, the institutional version of exactly what the Amish built, and maintains interior temperatures without conventional heating equipment. It has done this since 2016. The Brock Environmental Center in Virginia Beach runs a closed geothermal loop that covers 88% of its total heating and cooling load. It earned LEED Platinum certification in 2016 and has been monitored continuously since. The Manitoba Hydro Place office tower in Winnipeg, where the average January temperature is 3 degrees Fahrenheit, uses a geothermal loop system that reduces its heating energy use by 70% compared to a conventional building of the same size. These are not experiments. These are documented, inspected, certified operating buildings. They have utility bills you can request. They have maintenance logs. They have commissioning reports filed with municipal agencies. The data exists in abundance. The committee that said the data didn't exist knew exactly where to find it. Your building inspector has never heard of them because none of his licensing exams mentioned them. His entire professional framework was written by the people whose revenue depends on the alternative. He isn't corrupt. He isn't part of a conspiracy. He was simply trained inside a system that was designed from the beginning to have only one answer. If you're watching this thinking it only applies to new construction, stay with me, because this next part is specifically for people who already own a home. You do not need to tear out your foundation. You do not need to rip out your furnace. You need land, any land, a backyard, a side strip along a fence line, even a front yard strip the width of a car. Here is what the residential retrofit looks like. You dig a trench 7 to 8 feet deep. The length that matters most is 150 feet minimum. That's one pass down the length of an average backyard and back. You lay a closed loop of 1.25-inch HDPE pipe, the same pipe used for rural water lines, in a bed of sand for maximum contact with the surrounding earth. The two ends of the loop run through your basement wall. Inside the house, you connect the loop to a small circulating pump drawing 60 watts, less than a standard light bulb. The loop carries a water glycol mix, the same antifreeze used in your car. The glycol circulates through the buried pipe, picks up the Earth's stable 50-degree temperature, and returns to the house. Inside, that 50-degree loop feeds a fan coil unit, a simple heat exchanger with a blower that you can purchase for $90 to $150 online. The fan coil pulls warmth from the returning glycol and pushes it into your living space. In January, when outside air is 10 degrees, the loop is delivering 50-degree thermal potential into your house continuously, silently, drawing 60 watts total. To push that 50-degree baseline to 68-degree comfort, you need supplemental heat, but the load you're asking that supplemental source to carry is a fraction of what a conventional system handles alone. A small propane heater, a wood stove, even electric resistance heating run for an hour in the evening can carry a home the rest of the way when the earth has already closed most of the gap. Total materials cost, under $400 for the pipe, fittings, pump, and fan coil. The HDPE pipe carries a 50-year manufacturer warranty. In practice, installations from the 1970s are still running. Your furnace lasts 20 years and costs $8,000 to replace. This pipe costs $400 and outlasts the house. But here is the system that stopped me cold when I first read about it. The one that made me get in the truck and verify it in person. A man in rural Dubois County, Indiana runs a 2,100 square foot farmhouse built in 1962. Standard construction, no special insulation upgrades. The kind of house that by every conventional metric should be expensive to heat in a southern Indiana winter. 4 years ago, he put in a closed geothermal loop under his equipment shed, not his house. His shed 60 feet away. The shed sits over a clay-heavy soil that holds thermal mass exceptionally well. He ran the glycol lines from the shed to the house through conduit he buried in a single afternoon trench with a rented walk-behind trencher. Inside his utility room, he connected the loop to a second-hand fan coil unit he bought for $75 at an equipment auction. His existing propane furnace is still installed, still connected, still functional. He has not turned it on in 4 winters. His heating bill across 4 Indiana winters, the electricity to run a 60-watt circulating pump. At average Indiana electricity rates, that comes to about $26 a year. His neighbors in identical houses on the same road average $190 a month from November through March. He told me he keeps the propane contract active for one reason, so the utility company doesn't ask questions about why he stopped buying fuel. He said once they know your bill went to zero, they start sending inspectors. I asked him what the system cost to build. He said $340 in materials and 2 weekends of his own labor. He said the hardest part was convincing himself it would work. The second hardest part was not telling everyone he knew because he didn't want to deal with the disbelief. This knowledge is not new, it is not experimental, it is not fringe. The Vikings insulated their longhouses by banking earth against the exterior walls. They understood intuitively that soil held warmth and that a building touching the earth would never need to work as hard as one exposed to open air. The settlers of the American Great Plains built sod houses not out of desperation, but because sod construction maintained interior temperatures 35 degrees above the outside air in winter with no mechanical heating at all. The Smithsonian Institution has documented homestead sod houses in Kansas that were occupied through winters reaching 30 below zero. The Pueblo peoples of the Southwest built partially subterranean kivas for 2,000 years. The earth contact wasn't incidental to the architecture. It was the architecture. Every civilization that faced extreme cold without fossil fuel access arrived at the same solution independently. The earth stores temperature. The structure that touches the earth inherits that stability. What you build above ground needs only to close the final gap. The Amish brought that understanding from the Rhine Valley 200 years ago. They planted it in Lancaster County and Holmes County and Kishiquaquilas Valley and never let go of it because they never needed to let go of what actually worked. In 1935, a committee meeting in one industry association building decided what qualified as a legitimate heating system in America. The people in that room were selling furnaces. The people not in that room were the ones heating their homes for free. The ground under your house is sitting at 50 degrees right now. It was at 50 degrees this morning. It will be at 50 degrees on the coldest night of next January. It has held that temperature through every winter since before this country existed. It has never sent you a bill, not once. It never will. And it never could. Drop your state in the comments and tell me what you paid to heat your home last winter. And tell me whether you have any land around your house, a backyard, a side yard, even a strip along a fence line, because the loop I described fits in a trench the width of a shovel blade. If your grandparents had a farmhouse with a root cellar that stayed warm without any heat source, I want to hear about it. Describe how it was built, what it was made of, where it sat relative to the house. Because what they built and what this Indiana farmer built are the same physics. The industry just made sure you grew up thinking one of them was folklore. If you found this useful, subscribe and hit the bell so you do not miss the next one. This channel covers the practical knowledge families relied on for generations. Heating, food, water, building, preservation, the everyday skills that kept households independent long before monthly contracts and disposable products became the only options anyone knew. New videos regularly. Subscribe if you want to see what else has been quietly forgotten.